Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lobbes podcast. Later on, we'll be getting to our main topic of the day, which is currency and value and all sorts of other money-related things. But first, we'll start out the episode, as usual, with some 2016 news. And I want to start a new batch of polls. They've come out in Iowa. And I'll start with the Republican side. Trump, 23% in the lead. Ben Carson, second with 18. And then Cruz, 8. Walker, 8. Rubio, 6. Bush, 6. Carly Fiorina, 5.
Yeah, I saw that Carly has been, really doing... What did she have during the debates?
She didn't make it into the main debate. She was in
Yeah,
the
but what did she have
debate.
in her losers debate? It was under 1%, wasn't it? Or
It wasn't
slightly
under
over?
1. It was around 1.5.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
So I guess
Yeah.
good for her. That
Yeah.
breast cancer thing must have really gotten her points.
But the thing, so Trump obviously in the lead, but Ben Carson continues to rise, 18%. And he's only 5 behind Trump. And the other thing that was pointed out was that if you take the top 4 non-establishment candidates, as they're called, so Trump, 23, Carson, 18, Ted Cruz, 8, and Carly Fiorina, 5.
Wait, Ted Cruz isn't an establishment candidate?
No.
What? Who are the establishment candidates? Obviously Jeb Bush.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm
Or
getting to. Is
Jeb.
I haven't gotten there yet, Nathan.
Fine, get there.
But if you take... So
Did it
Trump
today.
and Carson together is 41%. Add in Cruz, 49. Fiorina, that's 54. 54% of the Republican voters say they will support one of those 4 candidates. And that's not including people who say their second choice. Ben Carson was first among people saying that he was their second choice with 14.
Of the Republican candidates, he's my second choice.
So yeah, 14% of Iowa voters say Carson. And if you add up the first choice and second choice categories for each candidate, Trump and Carson tie with 32% each.
Wow.
And then next is Ted Cruz, who gets, I think, 18%.
You know that even if, say Carson does actually pull through and win, it's still going to be Trump versus Carson versus Hillary/Bernie and also versus possibly Gary Johnson and whoever's in the Green Party.
Okay, I will...
Because Trump's running independent, isn't he? If he
No.
loses.
He said he might.
He said he might.
See, this is the thing, Nathan, is we don't know anything about what Trump is going to do. We don't know.
You don't think he'd run? I think he'd run.
I don't know. Nobody thought he was going to run for president, but that's because 4 times before this he said, yeah, I think I might run for president, and then he didn't run for president.
That's because I think, he wasn't really sure if he wanted to put, all the time and stuff into it. And now, he knows that he's popular. Even if he doesn't win, he's probably going to come in a good second or third.
Well, okay, first of all, that doesn't matter, and if you've paid any attention to Trump, which I can only assume that you haven't, since you don't pay any attention to the news.
I pay attention to the news more than you. My news is better than your news.
No, you don't pay any attention to the news. You came into this segment saying, I don't really have anything to say in the news, Robert. You
'cause
cover
not
the
much has
news this
happened.
week. How long have we been going? We're about, 4 minutes into the segment?
It's because nothing much has happened this week. Or last week, I guess. Nothing, worth mentioning. I would consider worth mentioning.
That's because you don't pay attention.
Yeah, but you're like, Robert, news, or you're like, Nathan, news this week. Rubio hit a kid in the face. That's not
That
news.
was we had a 25-minute segment, and Rubio hitting the kid with the football was about 45 seconds of that.
Yes, but I had news last week. You're the extension of the things that you knew that I didn't was Rubio getting hit, Bernie Sanders apparently doing good. Both of those are pointless.
May I continue with the news that I know that you don't know?
Fine.
There was also a Democratic poll also from the Des Moines Register, largest
Joe
newspaper
Biden
in
did good
Iowa.
or something.
Well, here's the results of the poll, which did include Joe Biden. Hillary Clinton, 37. Bernie Sanders, 30. Joe Biden, 14. Martin O'Malley, 3. Jim Webb, 2. Lincoln Chafee, 1. The last time the Des Moines Register did a statewide poll of, and this is likely Iowa caucus goers, likely Democratic caucus goers in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
In May, it was Hillary, 57. Bernie, 16. Joe Biden, 8. And then the others were about the same, 2, 2, and 0 for Lincoln Chafee. So Hillary has dropped 20 points since May. Bernie has almost doubled, 16 to 30. Joe Biden has almost doubled, 8 to 14. And Joe Biden's not in the race yet, if he gets in at all.
I heard he was going to announce October 1st, like yes or no.
I hadn't heard October 1st, but I'd heard that September, October, sometime he would make a decision.
Right.
Which it's still hard to tell. There's another poll, which, because I know you think that a lot of this people liking Bernie is Democrats who don't like Hillary anymore.
Hillary is such like a hated person. I mean, she has lots of followers. I'm not gonna
not
say
among
that,
Democrats though.
But there's a lot of Democrats that hate Hillary. I mean, there's a lot of people that like her, but she's. But
see, like with the email thing, there was a poll on the email thing among likely Democratic caucus goers. So the same people in that poll where Hillary dropped 20 points and Bernie doubled and is now only 7 points behind, which is within the margin of error in Iowa. And by the way, there was a second poll that was released in New Hampshire this week that showed Bernie with 42% up by 7 on Hillary, who had 35. So that's the second poll in a row out of New Hampshire that showed Bernie in the lead. And now he's only down by 7 in Iowa. But this poll of the same people who have moved away from Hillary Clinton, Bernie's has moved up 15. On the question of Hillary Clinton's emails, people who said that particular issue was very important, 10%. Some fairly important, 7%. Only somewhat important, 21%. Not important, 61%.
Among Hillary supporters or among Democrats, period?
Among Democrats in Iowa.
So I imagine a lot of the not important are people saying, I wouldn't vote for her anyway. And a lot of the other non-important is, I like her enough that this doesn't matter.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, is that most of these people don't consider this to be a particularly important issue. Only 17 rated
insane.
Either. But what I'm saying is only 17% of the voters consider this to be either very important or fairly important, and the numbers have changed by more than that. Bernie's now only down by 7 when he was down by 41 points in May.
I must admit, I have not met a single Hillary Clinton supporter.
It's because you live in the middle of redneck nowhere, Pennsylvania.
No, but I've met, not including you, 5 or 6 Bernie supporters.
Mm-hmm. You are on a college campus, I'll point out.
Yes, because college campuses are generally, public universities are generally more left-wing, and I'm in a right-wing town. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, a bunch of Bernie supporters, not really any Hillary supporters.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, Hillary doesn't have a hashtag other than, hashtag wiping cloth or something. I don't know.
What is Bernie's hashtag?
Bernie has the feel the burn thing.
Oh, that's right.
And he also has wallet rape, but...
He does not have wallet rape.
It sounds like a special disease. Bernie doesn't have wallet rape.
That's awful. Yeah.
There's also a new one I see floating around. Feel the crash and burn.
That's because, as we'll find out in a few minutes, you don't understand economics.
I understand economics a lot more than you.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. Economics isn't even that hard.
It's made up, is what it is.
It's Keynesian economics is made up.
It's no more made up than... See, I don't think you understand what Keynesian economics is, but we'll talk about that, too.
Well, I have news.
And now Nathan has some more news about 2016.
You're so mean. Anyway, what news do I have? Right. I have nothing other than a simple Rand Paul announcement. Him saying that if he ever does become president, actually,
Which won't happen.
he's not going to give up his
medical
physician
practice.
Yes.
Is he going to move it out of Kentucky, or is he going to move the White House?
I don't know. He'll continue doing eye surgeries and stuff. I imagine that it'll be like he won't do it like a regular job, but
Really?
Like every few months or so, he'll spend a bunch of hours on it, or every month or so he'll it'll be a part-time thing. I don't know. Like he'll do all of his hours at once, kind of thing.
Instead of being a part-time president and a full-time eye doctor.
I mean, being president, nowadays it's just you tell people where to shoot. You tell people what to think.
You think it's easy now? Remember what Longenecker was talking about when
No,
Taft...
it should be difficult. I'm saying it's easy now.
It's not easy now.
Because you can be like, I want to attack this country, and Congress is just like,
There's a lot more to it than that. Then remember what Longenecker was talking about when Taft was president, and he would get up and he would...
when Taft was president.
Yes.
Now it's that things were different and better back then. Now it's
he would
just
get
like,
up and he would do nothing, and then he would play some golf, and then he would do more nothing, and then he would work in his office for maybe an hour or two, and then he would go to sleep until noon, and then get up and play more golf.
That's Taft, though, and probably Trump.
We want deal. That's the other thing that happened this week.
What?
Was Trump giving his speech and talking about making deals with people from China and him impersonating the Chinese negotiators. When you go over
I remember
when you go
that.
over to China and you meet these people, they're not polite. They don't say, "Oh, how is the weather over there? How are the Yankees doing? Oh, they're doing well. Yes, great." They say, "We want deal."
So let me just do a summary quick of our news.
Yes.
So of all the news this week,
Yes.
and you saying I don't know any news, the only news that you knew that I didn't was the polls, which I don't really care about much anyway.
Polls aren't news. No, that's not news. No.
It is news,
Bernie
but I'm
in the
saying it's
lead.
relatively unimportant news.
It's not
like it's
unimportant.
I don't care about the polls. Like
I know you don't. But
whoever's-
that's because you're wrong.
whoever's doing good in the polls will not affect who I vote, will not affect my actions whatsoever.
No, but it does affect who wins and who loses.
I can find out who wins and who loses in November 2016.
And now onto our
Yes.
main subject for this episode, which has something to do with money.
Economics 102,
Yeah, why not 101?
because that's been taken.
Whatever.
So we're doing 102.
102.
I'm doing 102. 'Cause
Okay, Nathan, take it
you're
away.
definitely
Mr.
not
Money
qualified
Man.
enough to teach people about economics.
That's
or
right, you
economics.
aren't. You certainly aren't.
I definitely am. So yes, it's called Austrian economics. Austrian economics generally being the ideology that let the free market run its course. Higher taxes do not mean a better economy, because you're taking the economy and you're putting a burden on it, aka taxes, and therefore it can't produce as much.
Well,
And I would say in this situation, there's no way we're anywhere near the point of Karl Marx's "we're going to be too productive," considering the United States doesn't even manufacture as much as it should anymore.
well, no, and the reason it doesn't manufacture as much as it should is because of all the trade deals, and we ship the jobs
Yes.
from Mexico and China and everywhere
Because
else.
we're going overseas, because, let's see, we could either A, stay in the U.S. and pay workers $15 an hour and get a permit and license just to breathe. Or you could go to Mexico and basically pay none of that except for shipping.
Well, that's not exactly true.
It's basically it. The point is, it is cheaper to send supplies to China, have them make it, and then send it back than it is to just make it here.
Mm-hmm.
And while that is like businesses should not export overseas, it's like you should really stop giving them a reason to export overseas.
Yeah, we should stop import tariffs.
We should stop. Okay, but why can't we just make it cheaper to produce things in the United States? Because if it costs $100, because if it takes $100 to make something, then you're gonna sell it for $120 usually.
Okay.
That's not true, but usually it's a 20% profit is what it is. That's the
As
average.
so
I
there's an
believe.
example.
So instead of paying, if it takes $80 to make something and $20 in taxes and like production, like in extra government fees, it becomes $100. You sell it for 120. Make it for $80. Now or if it takes $80 to make, you don't have to pay that extra $20. Now it's $96 instead of $120 for the American citizen to buy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you should make it better, like Google in Europe. Google's data centers, or a lot of their like European headquarters, whatever it is based in. I'm gonna get this wrong. It's either Luxembourg or Liechtenstein. I think it's Luxembourg.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is that Luxembourg's taxes, assuming it's Luxembourg, are very, 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 very low compared to other countries. Mostly because it's very low, so Google goes there. Well, that they're getting all kinds of money.
So did you just say that their taxes are low because it's very low?
I'm saying Google is there. Google is there because their taxes are really low, and they're getting tons of revenue.
It's low is because it's really low.
That is technically true. Anyway, that's why Google's there, because if they're making a lot of money because their taxes are low. Because Google's like, I'm gonna go here instead of anywhere else in Europe, and pay less. And Luxembourg's making a ton of money, assuming it's that, and Liechtenstein. But anyway, basic economics. So I want to talk about the dollar.
Talk about the dollar.
The concept of what like the dollar represents.
Mm-hmm.
So you know about, obviously there's the barter system of just trading one goat
For
I don't know, what can you get for a goat?
2 chickens?
I think a goat's actually pretty expensive nowadays.
3 chickens?
Oh no. I guess chickens would be expensive too, because you can, like, I don't know, because you can get a lot with chickens. You get the meat when you kill the chicken, and you also get the eggs constantly.
Mm-hmm. And you
whereas
get
a
milk with a goat.
Oh yeah, you get milk with the goat. I don't know.
You can't get eggs from a goat, but you can't get milk from a chicken.
You remember the kid in high school that owns goats? He said goats were expensive, or like it's like horses.
Yeah.
Like depending on the quality of the goat really matters.
Right.
In terms
I
of
imagine
genetics.
the quality of the chicken matters too.
Does it?
I mean, that's what. Yeah, like the organic free-range chickens.
Yeah, but that's how you raise the chicken, not like the genetics of the chicken.
Well, I suppose.
Like horses and stuff. Like you.
I don't understand why like thoroughbred. I mean, I guess.
I don't.
Like if you're trying to race a horse, you want the purebred horse that goes the fastest. But why do people want a purebred pet? I don't understand why that's more desirable than anything else.
I think it's a monarchy thing, like the whole concept of someone's better than you because its blood is pure. That's it.
So
that's
basically, the people with the purebred animals are Hitler.
Which didn't everyone in a certain royal family have hemophilia, or was it just all of Europe?
No, that was
all of the European monarchy. I mean,
it wasn't all the European monarchy. I'm pretty sure that was Russia.
Russia that had
the czars
had hemophilia because of all the inbreeding.
Well, yeah, before the communist takeover in Russia.
Because
in
like,
1916.
obviously they all had it, so they were all recessive for it and kept getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At least I think it was them. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was the Russians. We'll look that up.
Damn Russians.
If I'm wrong.
Yeah, we'll look that up.
You can put it in an annotation if I was incorrect.
See the annotation right here. That one right there. Okay. Anyway.
So back to the concept of the dollar and not blood.
So before we started talking about goats and then hemophilia.
Also, I will point out one other thing is that you do get you get meat when the chicken dies, but you get meat from the goat too.
Yeah, but that's
and
what I mean.
You get more meat from the goat than you get from the chicken.
But you also have to feed a goat more, I think, because a chicken
basically
is
just
smaller,
eats.
therefore takes less energy.
But you also get less from it. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Which is you should know that, Mr. Efficiency.
We're not talking
which is
about
more efficient, goats or chickens?
Goat prices, because I don't know. I don't own goats or chickens. I'll have to ask someone.
You
anyway.
will one day own a sheep.
eBay goat. and still see how much they cost.
Or if
See
it
if you
was
can get
the,
them shipped. Free 2-day shipping on goats from China.
you know what it would be if they had a
Is it a lower quality goat if it's from China?
probably. It'd probably be a mountain goat if it was Chinese. But you know what they would have if they had an eBay, but it was for sheep. eBay. I apologize for that.
I get it.
I had to.
You had to, of course.
Yes.
But okay. So anyway,
Uh-huh.
back to like the thing I
dollar.
started talking about for a whole 8 seconds before we went on a tangent. That used to be the system, trading goats for sheep and all that.
Uh-huh.
Well, everything holds value, and value is constantly changing based on supply and demand. So what you want to do is you want to create a standard. Like it's a part of civilization to create a standard that when you trade something, you can like a medium there or a middleman there, which is the dollar or a piece of currency. And the currency is meant to hold its value. That's its only purpose. Because rather than like if you own a bunch of stuff, that stuff will fluctuate in price over the years or months or even days, depending on what it is. So you want a currency to hold that value. You want a currency to where if you have a bunch of it and you just stash it away, like how obviously saving money is a good thing, or that's all you hear from everyone, save your money.
Yeah, that's because
So you're not
there's
poor.
problems with that, but
Thing like it's good to save money. So if you
Yeah.
want to save money, then that means you need, or at least it's very, very helpful to have a currency that's reliable and will hold its value. That way you can store your money. 10 years, you can pull it out. It's exactly what you had. You didn't lose anything. You're not like investing in some sort of hard asset just to realize nobody wants it in 10 years. And usually the dollar is backed on gold, or at least it was, and it should have been, which is theoretically, or at least in my opinion, the perfect currency.
because it's shiny.
Because it can hold its value, and the dollar cannot hold its value anymore. Since the creation of the Federal Reserve, it's lost 95% of its value. So if you have money and you put it away, if you have the U.S. dollar and you put it away for a few years, it's not worth as much when you pull it out. It didn't hold its value.
Yeah, which is why you should spend, which makes the economy grow.
Which is why, but you should say, you're supposed to save money. That's better for you to save money so that you can afford fancy things. Or if there's ever a bad day where, say, you need surgery or say you need something, or if you just want to buy something nice that's expensive, you can do it. Because nowadays, it's hard to save your money. Because you can't save, if you save your money, in 10 years it's not going to be worth as much. So if you want that nice house without having to take out a mortgage and go deep into debt, you want to have a sort of currency that'll hold value over the years. Because it's not holding its value, so now it's harder to save up for something.
Well, that's not really happening, but
The
inflation
dollar-
is at 0%.
What?
Inflation is at 0%.
I don't understand.
I
But Robert,
am aware of
money's
that.
being produced constantly, and there are more dollar bills out there than there was.
No.
And the dollar is losing its value.
Then why is currency at 0, or why is inflation at 0%?
I've never heard of that.
Okay, so the Federal Reserve, which you disapprove of massively, but their job is monetary policy.
That's
not
because
fiscal
if you
policy.
look at it, again, the dollar has lost 95% of its value. The Federal Reserve clearly isn't doing a very good job.
Well,
If it's lost 95%, if a dollar then is worth a nickel now. Yeah, and why don't we have silver in currencies anymore? Because the silver that you could put in currency is worth less than the currency would become. You can't make a nickel out of what a nickel used to be made of, because the process to make it and the precious metals inside it would be worth more than the nickel. It would be worth more than 5 cents.
yes.
So like a quarter from 1964 is worth, I think, $3.25 in pure melt value.
See, this is my point, though, is that since the stock market crash in 2008, in early 2009, the Federal Reserve has usually they usually try to keep inflation at around 2%. That's the goal, is 2%. We've been under that almost all of the time since 2009.
And yet the dollar is still losing its value.
No, that's what inflation is. So clearly it isn't losing its value as much as you think it is.
It is losing its value. That's the thing. It is losing its value. So the question is, why is it losing its value? Well, for one, when we did actually do that tiny audit of the Fed or whatever it is, and we found out just a bit, we got the Fed to tell us a bit more that they were keeping from us. We found $17 trillion. I think it was 17 trillion, or maybe it was 16, that we gave out in foreign aid that was never recorded. Mm-hmm. For one, and we know that all of their numbers that are reported usually aren't true. And the whole thing to audit the Fed, if the Federal Reserve, isn't that the big thing with pro-government people about NSA spying and all that? If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Then why is the Federal Reserve afraid of being audited?
I don't know. I'm not the Federal Reserve. That's
Exactly.
not my point, though. My point is that inflation is low. The dollar is not losing its value.
Well, your point is that the Federal Reserve says inflation is low, therefore the dollar can't be losing value. However, if you don't measure inflation and instead you measure the dollar's actual value, it has gone down. And it continues to go down. And you told me earlier your thing about how everything is only worth something because we say it is.
Yes.
Correct? So the reason the dollar is worth money is because the government says it is. It's legal tender. We should use it because everyone just generally accepts that. And the dollar is what you use for currency. It's like you can trade it for stuff. That's what you want. Well, the whole people are currently losing faith in the dollar. According to polls, basic polls.
Who are people?
And when research is done, when you interview people, a higher percentage of people are saying they trust the dollar less as a thing to hold their currency, which is why gold and silver constantly keep raising. Gold and silver raise for two reasons. One, because the dollar is worth less, therefore, if gold holds its value, it's going to be worth more dollars because the dollar is worth less. And two, because people don't trust the dollar for currency and start buying silver instead to hold their value, because silver and gold generally hold their value over time.
No, it's because gold and silver are fear investments. People buy gold and silver because they're afraid that everything is going to collapse. That's why.
And you can see that recently, in the past 5 years, silver went up and then it went back down because people were afraid. And during the whole fiscal cliff thing, and every time people get afraid, they buy silver. Now it's at a low because demand is going down. I was shopping for silver, and a lot of different areas are on back order for silver, which makes me think it's going to go up again if people are buying more, if they clearly can't keep up with the demand. But overall, if you don't look at the last 5 years and you look at overall, it's a steady increase. Mm-hmm. Both silver and gold. The thing is, if you got $10 and 1 ounce of silver in 1950, that $10 is worth practically nothing now. A lot less than it was, and the silver has held, or actually, technically raised in value. And that's the thing, is the dollar is losing value because why does Bitcoin exist? The whole reason Bitcoin exists is because people want an alternate currency. They don't want the dollar. People that trade in Bitcoin, which it's a relatively small thing, and I don't even fully understand it, because it's just too complicated for me to figure out the whole how to produce more of it thing. Bitcoin is becoming so big, or the size that it is because those people are generally losing faith in the dollar. You figure if the dollar collapses, they have that to held back on. And more people are buying gold, silver, and Bitcoin.
Right.
And that's a fear thing. It is a fear thing, and rightfully so. If people are losing faith in the dollar bill, and you see, I don't know when it is. I want to say October, sometime in October. But the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency. Mm-hmm. usually trades across nations are backed on the dollar.
Yes.
Just as the dollar used to be backed on gold and all that. Well, in October, there's going to be I don't know if it's the UN or the EU or something, but they're going to discuss whether we should change the dollar because it's too weak to use as the reserve currency. And look at China's been doing, I don't want to say good because of their whole stock market thing, but over the last several decades or so, 20, 30 years, they've been doing pretty good.
That's called currency manipulation.
They've been growing in value, and currency manipulation is called inflation, Robert. Or
no.
Inflation is called currency manipulation.
No.
That's the nice thing about gold and silver, because if, like, you can't just print more. No one can just print more of it like the U.S. government can with the U.S. dollar. You can't just take $10 of the material that the dollar is made of. What is it, cotton and something, or
what?
I know, what's the dollar made? What's the dollar bill made of?
It's some fibrous thing.
It's not paper. I know that.
Well, no, it's a woven.
But it's
thing.
something like that. But you can take that and you can print basically in whatever. If you make the bills larger, you can make all kinds of like fiat currency there. And that's the nice thing about gold and silver, because if you want to make more gold and silver, you have to mine it. So it costs a lot, and it's a big risk, because what happens if you don't find any gold or silver? What happens if you don't get any precious metals? So if you want to make more of it and steadily increase the value, or steadily increase the amount of it, you have to keep it's very expensive to get it. Yes. And China is buying up a ton of gold. I think they're in their reserves, their treasury, whatever, they have, I think, 3% gold. 3% of its gold. So that's not that much compared to the U.S.'s theoretical 70%, they claim. The Federal Reserve claims. But China has been buying up tons of gold, or Hong Kong has been buying tons of gold.
What China has been doing is buying up tons of foreign currency. Yes. Not gold.
And gold.
Well, that's not what I'm talking about. They've been buying foreign currency, which is what they say when they say currency manipulation. That's what they're talking about. Is what China has been doing is been taking their money, their currency, which I can't pronounce, the yuan or something.
Yes, the Y-U-A-N, yuan.
Yuan. I'm just going to say the Chinese currency. But what they've been doing is they've been taking that and buying other currency and storing the foreign currency. So they're buying U.S. dollars and taking U.S. dollars out of circulation, therefore appreciating the U.S. dollar. So even though we are printing more money, China taking all of our money, and then what that does is, first of all, they take our money, it goes out of circulation, goes into their reserve, which is roughly $3.3 trillion, their foreign exchange reserve. 60% of that is U.S. government bonds and other stuff. And
really?
It also takes more of their currency and puts it in the foreign exchange market. So it artificially, first of all, deflates U.S. currency. So that's how it's evening out. That's why there's no inflation, is because even though you say we're printing more money and it's losing value, it's not, because China is taking our dollars out of circulation.
Except it is losing value.
Except it's not. It hasn't been since 2009.
It's been losing value.
Not since 2009, when there's been
always loses value.
Little to no
inflation is not the only thing that decreases the value of the currency. It's a big factor.
My point is that, first of all, that what China is doing is taking our money out of circulation and putting more money of theirs in circulation. So they're artificially inflating their currency and deflating ours. Ours is appreciating, which is being balanced out, but that's why inflation has been so low.
But here's the thing, the government does want to inflate the U.S. dollar.
Yes, because that's good for the economy.
Because that's not good for it's temporarily good for the economy. It's overall bad for poor people. In fact, inflating the currency doesn't do as much. It actually hurts the poor people more than it hurts the rich people.
Why?
Because the rich people have tons of money and they keep making tons of money. If you're poor and you have say, like, I'm just throwing a number out there. Say you have $100 and inflation happens, Okay, now your $100 is worth $90. You just lost 10% of your value, whereas people with more money are constantly earning more money.
But what it does is, first of all, it helps people who are in debt. Inflation does.
Yes, it hurts people who are in debt, like the U.S. government.
It's good for people who are in debt. It's bad for creditors, who are primarily rich people who loan people money. So it's bad for them. It's good for people who are in debt, like college students. It's good for them. Normal people who are in debt.
And it's bad for people that want to save money.
Yes, which means they're less likely to just sit on their money and stuff it in their mattress, and they're more likely to spend their money, which is how the economy works.
Therefore means they're more likely to be forced to live paycheck to paycheck and less likely to be able to afford, save for a rainy day when something bad happens.
Well, see, I'm not saying, first of all, I'm not saying you should spend all of your money, and I'm also not saying that inflation should be ridiculously high. I'm just saying that slightly higher inflation helps sort of manufacture the growth of the economy.
Gold and silver are slightly inflated.
Well, that's what the whole thing was in 1896 with William Jennings Bryan, when he ran on the...
Your pal WJB?
Yes. But that was the whole Cross of Gold speech. He said, "I will not impale the blah, blah, blah on this cross of gold." His platform was to move to an inflationary silver standard. His platform was higher inflation because it was the populist peasant farmers was his base. In a higher inflation
and inflation
standard
is always a temporary solution. It's not a lot in the end it doesn't help, but it's always a temporary solution.
Yes, it's a temporary
solution. Because it pumps out a ton of money and the market doesn't react to it immediately, but it eventually does. It hurts people in the long run, but in the quick short run, you have a ton of money out there.
But that's why we have a Federal Reserve to manage things like this.
Yeah, they haven't managed it very well.
I am aware of that because that's why China doing the currency manipulation and taking our money out of circulation has been such a big deal recently.
And you do realize that inflation helps banks, right?
Mm-hmm.
That giving the government the power to print more currency really helps out banks, especially gigantic banks. Because you know how banking works, right? How a banker makes money. They make money on interest.
On interest, yes.
Yes. And you know how they decide whether they want to take out a loan or whether they want to grant someone a loan or not.
The risk versus reward.
Yes, the whole if someone is less likely to pay them back, they're not going to get a loan, or they're going to give them a loan with a high interest rate. Or the most likely, they just won't give someone a loan if the person doesn't seem like they're going to pay them back. If the person does seem like they have good credit and they show they do pay back, well then they will give out a loan, and they'll usually give out lower interest rates because they know they'll get that back either way. And generally, there's also that little reward of how the economy is doing. Just because someone shows that they handle money really good doesn't mean that they're going to profit and pay them back. They could lose all their money based on just the way the economy works, and they might not get paid back. So the banks determine it that way. They take out loans on people that they know they'll get their money back from. Mm-hmm. Well, the government is a 100% guarantee loan.
Uh-huh.
Correct?
Yes.
If the government takes out a loan on a bank, which bankers buy all these bonds and stuff, they are 100% guaranteed to get their money back.
Mm-hmm.
Because say the government something happens, they don't have the money. They either, one, increase taxes, or two, print more. And the bankers will get paid back. They'll make money.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, inflating currency is what makes banks gigantic, or it's a big contributor to making banks gigantic. Because the banks can just keep taking out more and more of these bonds when they can, and they'll get paid back. It's free money.
It's not as big of a factor in that as not enacting antitrust laws. But that's not the topic of this week's show.
So what you're saying is the federal government should start doing stuff to break up banks instead of stop doing things to make the banks bigger.
Well, we have...
Clearly, we should just ignore the fact that they're making the banks bigger and have them do something else.
Yes.
Rather than, stop making the banks gigantic.
Well, and obviously I'm against the idea of corporate bailouts and stuff like that, but which is also a big problem.
That's one of the nice things about gold and silver. Banks can't take out money, or banks can give a loan to the government and get it 100% guaranteed if it's gold or silver, because the government just can't print more silver. It can always tax the people more, but can only tax the people so much before they get, you can't just raise taxes to whatever you want. And generally, raising taxes doesn't yield high revenue in the long run.
I would disagree with that, but...
You would disagree with that because you don't know how the economy works. You don't understand that if you increase taxes, less people are going to pay taxes.
Fewer people. Now we're going to go on to our next segment entitled, What Do We Hate This Week?
I hate socialism. That's what I hate. I hate people that say, no, you don't have the right to take care of yourselves if you want.
Nathan hates socialism this week. What I hate is this new trend that men have.
Is it the free bleeders?
No, though that is disgusting. I won't even talk about that anymore.
That's socialism.
What I hate is this new trend that men have, particularly men on TV, where they sort of grow a beard, but they don't. It's not a beard. It's like a permanent 5 o'clock shadow. This new look that they have. And they have half a beard. It looks like they forgot to shave that morning. They're wearing a wrinkled shirt. Their tie is crooked. It's the I have a hangover look. And now it's become popular. And people have it all the time. They have these awful, nasty-looking semi-beards. And it's disgusting, and I don't approve of it at all, and I hate these things.
Thank you for listening to the Lobbes podcast. If you would like to ask us a question or suggest a topic, please send an email to asklobbes, that's ASKLOBBES, @gmail.com. If you have a question for me, then please include Locke, that's LOCKE, in the email title.
And if you have a question for me, please include Hobbes, that's HOBBES, in the email title. Please leave your first name for us, and we'll try to answer your questions on the podcast, within reason.
And if you like this episode, then please hit the like button below. And if you really like this episode, please hit the subscribe button. We do a new episode every week.